Okay. Okay. Evelyn Chumbow is the Advocacy and Survivor Leadership Director at the Human Trafficking Legal Center. She is a survivor of child labor trafficking and now is an anti-trafficking activist and public speaker. Chumbow focuses her life's work on ending modern-day slavery. Chumbow works tirelessly to raise awareness and advocate for other survivors. She strongly believes in the need for professional development for survivors and dedicates her time volunteering at the grassroots level to guide communities on how to create employment opportunities for trafficking survivors. She leads the Harriet Tubman Fellowship, which provides career training for trafficking survivors. Let me see. All right, let me try to, how can I truncate this? Okay, okay. Chumbow serves as an advisor to human trafficking NGOs. She currently serves on the board of directors for Free the Slaves. From 2015 to 2022, she worked at the law firm of Baker and McKenzie LLP in Washington, D.C., where she had the opportunity to support human trafficking and human rights related pro bono initiatives. Chumbow hopes to leverage her unique position as a former child slave to end trafficking in West Africa, in her hometown, and in the rest of the world. Okay, so everyone, let's welcome by, I guess, chat, the hand claps in the chat. Let's welcome Evelyn Chumbow. Welcome, welcome. Excellent. Okay, Evelyn, is there anything you want to say before I get right into the questions?
No, thank you. I am grateful. And like you said, we've known each other for a while, so I'm ready to have a conversation. I do love the title, and so let's talk.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Evelyn. Okay, so this is how I start out with everyone. Tell us a little bit about yourself, or just tell us about yourself. Where are you from? Who are your people? And I know you're from Cameroon, so what was your life like in Cameroon before arriving in the United States?
All right, thank you, Greta. Again, you all, everyone, all the Black people are my people. So just like Greta said, I'm originally from Cameroon. Cameroon is west, close to Nigeria, and Cameroon is French and English. I was born in Cameroon, but I always say the DMV raised me, DC, Maryland, Virginia. Just like my bio was said, I was trafficked from Cameroon to the United States at age 9. And what I loved at back in Cameroon, I played, I love soccer, football, we call it football now, but soccer, I really loved it. And I just love, being a kid at that time. And I used to love climbing on mango trees and things like that. But of course, coming to the United States as a survivor of child forced labor, I did not have any of that anymore. I instead was forced to work, cook and clean, and take kids and take care of 2 kids at age 9. And not only that, it also happened like right in Maryland, like not far from the Capitol, White House, and things like that, and Potomac, Maryland. So I've lived like I know Maryland like the back of my hand because I've lived in Maryland since I landed to the United States.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And um, and as far as you saying that your experience of being brought over when you were 9 years old, I remember when you were a student at CCBC and when you told me that that was what happened to you. And I just remember being like stunned and also, yeah, just very humbled because I think there's a picture of what people show trafficking to be. And it's
Yeah.
like that movie Taken, where it's like you go somewhere, there's these like thugs, these
Yeah.
criminals, you know, like,
Yeah.
they have these vans and they have this like trafficking enterprise, and then they snatch somebody up, right? And
Yeah.
with your experience, it was just so different from that. So as much as you want to share, can you help us understand how it happens for your experience and kind of how it happens probably for a lot more people, who are trafficked?
Yeah, thank you, Greta. And just to make something clear, I appreciate that you brought up the word, human trafficking. Because a lot of the times when people do think of trafficking, they automatically think sex trafficking, right? And when they say sex trafficking, sometimes the images, right? I'll just tell you right now, if you go to Google and you do human trafficking and click on images, you're gonna tell me, I mean, I might pop up somewhere now in that. But tell me the images that you see and tell me what you see. You'll see like a white person with a handcuff, and things like that, but not really understanding that human trafficking is not only sex, it's forced labor. And like you read my bio, I refer to human trafficking as a form of modern day slavery, right? Because when I think of my situation and also studying the history of slavery in the United States, I feel like that's exactly what happened to me. It's just in a different generation. I lived in Cameroon, like I said. I forgot to mention, beside playing soccer and climbing the mango tree, I love watching a lot of television show. And there were three favorite television shows that I used to watch a lot. The Bill Cosby show. I don't care what nobody says. I wanted a Bill Cosby father, right? I really did. 90210, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like literally Will Smith. I keep telling people that was my dream to marry Will Smith. I was young, but yes, because it was funny. Like I recently just said, now this is the story how my life got twisted upside down, right? French rings of Bel Air, because my life really got twisted upside down. The America was not the America that I saw in the eyes of this television show, right? And in Cameroon, I know a lot of times people say, "Oh, were you playing around with lions and tigers in Africa and things?" I'm like, listen, I did not see a lion until I came to America and went to the zoo in DC. Okay, so we were middle class rich. We were not like super super rich, right? And I always try to tell, we had television. Yes, it wasn't the flat screen we have now, but we had the box TV, right? And my uncle that made the arrangement for me to come, like you said, my story is not like the movie Taken. I do love me some Liam Nelson, and I always tell the kids in school, it's not like Taken. I did not have a Liam Nelson father, right? But I did have a brother, an older brother. But my uncle worked for a lot of wealthy people back in Cameroon, right? And one of those people, their daughter was in the United States. And my understanding was I was going to be adopted by this woman. Because in Africa, it's just normal. Sometimes you take other kids and you bring them, the kids that come from the village or go somewhere. Then like I was living with my uncle, right? Not my parents, because my parents got separated, and my mother, there were six of us. So my parents got separated. So we go and live with different people. But I went to school while I was with my uncle. I did not cook or clean. I do chores. I was helping out and just assisting, right? So when I was told that I was coming to be with this woman that was also Cameroonian, I thought that was the same thing I was going to do. I was going to be like a big sister. Never did I think that I'll come to a country knowing the history of slavery in this country and also be forced to work. And never did I think that I was sold by my uncle, because my uncle said, I took money for you. But I just thought, I was like, what? So I was sold. Um, and also just remembering, before even coming to the America, my uncle took me to my trafficker's parents' home. It's a very nice home. We call it a compound. This is like it's huge, right? It's gated and things like that. And there are other kids, boys and girls that came from the village that worked there. And I remember my trafficker mother turning me around and literally said, "Hi, Carlos." Sorry. And literally said, "Isn't she young for the job?" And I'm thinking, what job? I am going to marry Will Smith and I'm going to have Bill Cosby as my father, right? I did not know that I would come and be taking care of two kids and not going to school, right? So my trafficker was a woman, right? And she was dating, her fiance at that time was a medical doctor. And she also owned businesses. So we lived in Silver Spring, Maryland. If for those of you that are in DC area, there was the Blair apartment. It was a tall apartment. Then from there, we moved to Belpre Road. Then from there, she bought a house in Potomac, Maryland, right? And my workload became a lot, right? Here I am, instead of going to school, there was no school. I didn't go to school from age 9 until 17. Really, the only education I really received was really through CCBC, right? And I was still struggling, right? But you guys had program that supported me. But nobody would have known that I never went to school, And so she used one passport and brought 6 of us into the United States. And that's another thing. I did not know I came to the United States illegally, right? I did not know my name was not my name, right? And my story was investigated all the way back to Cameroon. And so I did run away because my trafficker brought another person, and that person was my cousin, right? So I ran away. My cousin saw the abuse because I was physically and mentally abused. Not only was I did not go to school, I had to take off my clothes because she expected me to cook or to speak our dialect. Cameroon, we have 250 dialects, and it's also English and French. I was born in the French part. I went to the English part. It was really not, it was like, oh, you have to stop speaking French. You're in the English part now. And then from the English speaking part, I came to America. So I'm just lost. So when I think that's why I call it a form of modern day slavery, because it's like with Africans, I am not African. I'm either in the middle. With Americans, they know I have this accent. So I struggle with my identity a lot due to my situation. But just going back, I didn't go to school from age 9 until 17. I got placed into foster care and foster care right in DC. I became ward of state in DC because Maryland did not have a lot of social services program that could support my need, even though my situation happened in DC. And where they placed me in foster care in DC was in Southeast DC, right? And so my environment almost became me, but lucky enough, I and also in foster care, I started to learn about sex trafficking because there were girls that were trying to recruit me into like sex. I'm like, no, I just escaped this part. I don't want any of that, right?
Mhm.
So, regardless, I got out, got my GED while I was in foster care. I came to CCVC, got my associate degree, went to University of Maryland University College, and got my bachelor.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't want to, because if we're here, we'll be here all day. So I'm going to let you go in, Greta, just asking the question. And again, for the audience, if there are questions, if there are things that I missed, please do let me know and you can ask me later.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, I think Dwayne has a wow. Kind of. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And and I know you have to share it so many times. And I asked you to share so that we can be, we can learn more and be educated, because I do think that people don't understand that it is people that are involved in your trafficking.
Yeah.
And sometimes people, it will be family members, it will be friends, it will be friends of friends, because a lot of times they want your defenses to be down, that you don't, if it's like taken, then you kind of like, these people seem suspicious. Like,
Yeah.
it's, you would know to stay away from that. But a lot of times it's about building a connection or relationship to you so that you don't suspect that
Yeah.
is, anything nefarious is happening. And certainly not anything on the level of being, someone who's going to be trafficked. And sometimes I've read that people also will even get in relationships with
Yeah, it
people.
can be
Yeah.
trafficking, there's all form, right? There's through marriages, which I'll talk about that. There's through marriages, and it's trafficking is a big business.
Mhm.
It's a serious big business, and there's all form, but the only one form we hear about a lot of the time is sex trafficking. And the trafficking impacts mostly BIPOC community. Yes, the most people vulnerable to trafficking are the BIPOC community that they don't talk a lot about, right? And I don't know if you guys already Google trafficking and saw the images, anybody can be affected by human trafficking,
Mhm.
and the root cause to trafficking is also poverty. That I want people to know that it's also poverty. There are people that are forced into marriages and they come here and then their spouses is forcing them to work, or making them do things that they don't want to do. And also big businesses, right? Big businesses, the H-1 visas, different type of visas, they bring people here and force them to work without no pay. Or sometimes people look at art advertisement. Like I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I spoke at Facebook because there's an organization called Tech Against Trafficking, and they work with Facebook. So I spoke at the Facebook in New York, and I talked to them. I told them, said, because they wanted to address the issue of labor trafficking, because I mentioned earlier, a lot of the times when people think of human trafficking, it's just sex. Everything just pops up, is just sex. It's beyond that, right? And just like I support, like I'm food de creme. Support, like I support sex workers, right? And I support sex worker. I'm against having little kids, forcing little kids to sell their body for them, because kids, just like me, I was too young to be taking care of 2 kids and being physically and mentally abused, right? Because for my trafficker could have hired a nanny to do the job that she wanted me to do, but my family trusted her, believed in her, and thinking that, and that she was going to be like an adopted person to adopt me, right? And that didn't happen, right? Because, and also when we think of the reason why, I always say the reason, because in Europe I've traveled a lot, and in Europe they use the term modern day slavery instead of human trafficking.
Mhm.
And a lot of my colleagues here in America don't like that I use the term modern day slavery,
Mhm.
right? And do you know why I say they don't like the term? Because they are, for me, I feel like because America is still guilty of the history of slavery. So
Mhm.
that's why they're using the term human trafficking, which as in Europe is called, because it is a form of modern day slavery. If you think of the history of slavery, they never wanted to end slavery. They never really wanted to end slavery because they were benefiting from cheap labor. And
Yeah.
that's what's going on,
Mhm.
right? That's what's going on. Like, right, I'm a mother. Me coming here, I have to pay a babysitter, and it's not cheap, right? So why didn't my trafficker hire a professional nanny to take care of her 2 kids and help with the cooking and cleaning? Because it's expensive.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a lot to like look at it, and also the media doesn't really do a good job. There was a movie, The Sound of Freedom. We had to say a lot of things regarding that movie because it was just portraying certain things. Like, think the person in the movie was a woman, a Latino woman that was Afro Latino, that was doing the buying, that was taking the kids,
Oh.
right? So
Mhm.
the portrait of the movie was not even like, okay, so you're saying all the black people are just evil and they're just selling their children and things. So it's a mixture, right? Yes, my trafficker was Cameroonian, but it's a mixture of people. It's not any particular race or portray. And um we went to seek for help. Most of us that got out of our situation in trafficking, and we didn't even know we were trafficking victims,
Mhm.
right? When you're in that situation, you didn't know. I didn't even know that I was, right? And when I even told my story, I actually went to it's called Catholic Charity. It's in DC. It's by Dr. King's Library in Washington, DC. I just went there. I'm like, hey, I've been in this country. This is what is happening to me. Because even I did not start seeing my cycle until I was like 18, right? Because my trafficker was not only um uh, emotionally abusive, she also beat me. Like, I had probably would not be able to see some of the scars, but I
Mhm.
had to take off, like my clothes, and she used like a cable and beat me up. I had to kneel down, for one of my punishment, or I had to stand up to like 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning to get the kids ready for school. Or when I was cooking, I burn up the food, I'll get in trouble. I'm like, I don't know how to cook. Like, people in Cameroon were cooking for me, right? I just eat and clean
And
the
you're a
dish.
child. You're a
I'm
child.
a child, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
clean the dishes. I mean, now I'm an amazing cook now, but but I don't know what her expectation was of me. I think she thought maybe I was from like the village or something. Um, and she just expected so much things for me, like even to speak the dialects. Like, I'm like, I don't speak our dialect. Like, I was born in the French part. Like, I don't understand what you want me to say. Like, what do you want me? And she got upset. Or when I burn up the food burn. And there were so many times, right? There were so many times that people came, firefighters, law enforcement, but they didn't ask the right question, which is why I do training now. I train law enforcement, I train the health, people that work in the health field, because one of the bruises that I obtained was on my knee. Now I have knee problem because she used a metal broom and beat me, and my knee cracked,
Mm.
right? And I went to the hospital, and they didn't ask the right question, and she was right there because I couldn't say anything. And at that time, her fiance also was a medical doctor. So a lot of the bruises that I will obtain, she will call him and he will come and like, but he was like, you can't keep doing this. She's gonna die, right? I will go days without eating. You understand? And also I don't know if I mentioned I came here illegally. Like, she used one passport and brought six of us into the United States. And that was in the early 90s.
Yeah. Thank you. That is so much, Evelyn. This is so much. And I think about and I appreciate you sharing that. And um I think for a lot of people, I think they're taking it in and they're processing it, because I do really think people have an image of what it is, and then to know what life can be like for somebody, but also to see somebody who has been through it. And I know when I met you at CCBC, I know I was like, I felt so blessed that I met you, that you crossed my path, because I I don't know if I even would have thought about human trafficking at all. But then also, again, you would probably have an image of what that looks like. And then I think and then another turn, it made me realize sort of the power of how do you get through something like that? What type of person do you need to be, have to be? What is in you that allows you to move forward? And before we move forward, that was a lot, but one, I want to say thank you so much for sharing. I know you have to share it a lot, and
Yeah.
um, I think by you sharing, you bless us with knowing the sort of ins and outs of it a bit more, what to look for a bit more, and also that this is what I say all the time. When you meet people, you never know what they've been through in life. You literally do not know what people have been through, and what in like the journey they have taken in life. And so
Yeah.
that's what I thought about you. You were so kind and confident too, kind and confident, grounded person, compassionate and kind. And you were just amazing. Like every time I was around you, worked with you, I was just like, Evelyn got it. Evelyn got it. I mean, you were on it, and nothing about you would have told me this was your first like formal education of any sort. So thank you. I'm so blessed by you then and now. And so before we move forward with some other questions I have, um, is there any questions that people have for Evelyn?
I think
I think
I,
she's open to answering in
Yeah.
I just have a comment, not a question. Can everybody
Mhm.
hear me?
Yes, Carlos. And why is your camera off?
It was looking really real groggy, and I just turned the thing off. It was just kind of crazy to me. Um, but I just want to say, your story is inspiring, Evelyn. I've heard it since CCBC, but also I remember we brought you for a human trafficking symposium we did at Baltimore City Community College.
Yes.
So to see you continuously telling your story and inspiring people, and and just being a resilient person, is really amazing. I just want to say, I see your growth. And when I met you, I never would have imagined either that Evelyn went through that experience she went through. She was always cheerful. You know, you were silly at times. You know how you were, Evelyn.
Yeah, I was. I still am.
So it was just like, nah, she didn't go through all this. But to be a person who's able to do what you're doing right now, it's amazing. And I'm just blessed to know you as well. And you also, Greta. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, Carlos. Carlos
Thank
also worked
you.
at CCBC. Yeah. We had a good old time there. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
It was
in
interesting.
we need a reunion.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you,
No
Um,
problem.
Carlos. Thank you.
Dwayne, you have your hand raised.
Yes, you know, I thank you for sharing that. That is very difficult. I can only imagine what it takes. Carlos mentioned resilience. Um, and I really do feel honored that you would give that to us. It's definitely a blessing. I was curious to the extent that you're willing to talk about it, if you could describe what you're healing, how you started healing, and what does that look like for you today in terms of you know healing from all of that. Thank you.
Dwayne, thank you. That is a great question. I think people don't ask that enough, especially as a Black woman and, African American, African. I don't know how to, because people want to change terms these days. I'm confused, but I refer to myself as an African American woman. Um, we don't even in my sector in this movement, I have done presentation that I feel like they don't ask us Black people how we deal with the healing, right? They just, when they talk about the trauma, they just never think that we go through it, especially as an African, right? Because there's so many Africans that has affected them. That even men, right? African men that I have met that have come to me and talk about this, and that they're afraid to even come out to talk about, and that have just shared that this happened to them. Healing is something that I'm still going through. I never really healed. Um, I guess you could say, like Carlos and Greta mentioned at CCBC, I was going through a lot, right? Foster care was just a different side for me. I got to understand what Black American kids go through. The friends that I were around were either their mothers were on drugs, and I really got to understand the issue of the Black American story, because I almost became that, right? I got introduced to different type of drugs in being in Southeast DC, right? And just also just being, I got pulled a gun at in Hinesville, Maryland, on my way from just opening my bank account. And why in my situation, my trafficker also was not only physically abusing me, but also emotionally by using words like, you're ugly, you're dark skinned, because she's also one of those women that were bleaching themselves, right? Um, and then that I was too ugly to sleep on the bed. So I slept on the floor. Like, this is America. Like, I literally slept on the floor. I had no bed. So healing, I have tried. They did try to put me in therapy, but I didn't understand what that was even, right? Because in foster care, they were like, "Oh, she need to go to therapy." I was like, "Okay." And my lawyer, her name is Melanie. She's a white woman, and I love her to death because she was trying to explain to me. I was like, "What is this? I'm talking to this person I don't know." Because every interview that I was doing, I was crying because I had to relieve. As you can see, even though I'm sharing now, I've tried to hold back the tears, but it's not as crazy as it was in my earlier stage. If you see one interview I did, ABC, I had like little twists, like tears were coming out of my eye because I had to relieve this graphic part of my life. I never really healed. And even when I was at CCBC, I was struggling because I haven't seen my family members. My mom, I haven't seen my family for 18 years, right? Um, didn't have any contact with them. Only my brother that called me while I was in the house. I am still in the journey to your question. I'm still in the journey of healing. Um, it's a process. Even my mom lived with me now. When she came, I will scream. I was like, go away, don't come here, because I felt like she gave me up with that understanding. And I never really took therapy seriously because I didn't understand what that therapy, because it wasn't explained to me. Cultural understanding is something that I also do in the sector to train people that are dealing with foreigners, especially folks from Africa. We don't know what the heck therapy is, right? We don't know that. And what really gets me through is just affirmations and listening to good music. I love music that speaks truth, and also just praying and having faith, right? I'm actually, my boss just told me I need to go on a sabbatical because I'm doing a lot and I had a meltdown. So I am still in the healing process, Dwayne. It takes time. Especially when people say forget, because in my family will be like, stop talking about your story, it's over, you're okay, you're traveling around the world, you're meeting presidents, you're doing that. But I'm supporting all those family members, right? And I was a child, my childhood was taken away from me. And so when we talk of healing, I wish the African community can understand that you need time to heal before even going out to do what you need to do. But I am still in the healing process, and I'm actually gonna get therapy very soon.
Thank
I
you.
just hold it well.
Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for letting us know what your process has been. Um, and you were saying, music, prayer, faith, and that really is the focus. And I know there was a couple people who have questions. So I'm gonna let you get to your questions, but I think that's the root of why I wanted to do the series too, of like what keeps people going, what allows them to take those leaps of faith when you decided to leave, the household, when you decided to say, I'm going to go to school, right? I'm going to go to CCBC. I'm going to keep going. And when you say prayer and faith, what is, I guess, what is that core? What,
I
where did
mean,
that come from? What is
it,
the
it's
source
from
of that?
Cameroon. I mean, while I was in Cameroon, I went to a Catholic school,
Mhm.
right? And we used to go, I was baptized in a Catholic church, I'm not, and my auntie, my uncle's wife, she was part of the Catholic Women Association. And so she had to make sure, like, my parents at that time were not very religious, right? So when I moved in with them, she was like, oh, she has to get baptized. And I got baptized in a Catholic church. But I also know that we had a lot of like priests from like Germany and friends that will come to Cameroon and talk to us about prayer and God and all of that. But what was really, to your question, is faith. But what really keeps me going is the fact that this thing, human trafficking is a horrible crime,
Mhm.
especially when you're dealing with children, like exploiting children, right? I'll also tell you it happens to US citizen children. I just did a presentation, and a lot of times also there's two case study that are African American. One is Chris Smith that was trafficked in South Carolina, and another one is Kendra Ross that was trafficked by I don't know how to pronounce it, but see, it's a court, like she was a child. Kendra, she just graduated from college. She wants to go to law school. But you can Google those two stories, and I'll send you the link, Greta. What keeps me going is the fact that this happened to me as a child, as such a young child, and I really don't want to see it happen. And also the fact that not a lot of people from Africa talks about this issue. right? And I remember just being in, like I said, I had to go to my trafficker parents' house. All these boys and girls were working, cleaning and things like that, and it just made me sad, right? They came from the village, and I'm like, are they going to school? Are they getting paid? And then I come to America, it happened to me, and then I'm just like, I don't want this to happen to anybody. This is a big issue. I don't want it to happen. And I'm a mother now. I don't want my kid to go through what I went through. I don't wish what I went through to any other child. Right? That's what keep me going, and also trying to devise the to be more in, because in this sector there wasn't a lot of diversity on the voices that were speaking on trafficking. So I had to be that voice, right? In 2020, it's not because of George Floyd, but 2021, George Floyd was one of the reason, but I did a survey with the help of the organization I work with, the Human Trafficking Legal Center. I did a survey to address systemic racism affecting the human trafficking movement, because in 2017, there were Africans that were being auctioned off in Libya. There was literally a live video, right? And some of those victims in Libya reach out to me through WhatsApp, right? But nobody said anything about it. Nobody did. It was on the news for just like a second and just boom, went away, right? Nobody said anything. And then it baffled me. It's like, is this because they are Africans? Like, what's going on here? I reach out to the State Department. I'm like, this is not right. What's going on? And then I also decided to do a survey on the issue, right? Because when you were looking at images of people, survivors that were coming out telling their story or writing books, were mostly whites, were mostly white women, right? So they were the one coming telling their books. Even now in the media, when you talk about trafficking, who are the people that are being held for trafficking? I'm not going to call names, Greta. I'm not calling names. But y'all know, like, we have two, people in the media that are being accused of trafficking. And people have to understand, one of those was not a trafficker. A trafficker is someone that is being, one of those people in the media is a buyer. He is a buyer. He's not a trafficker. He's just like little kids. Okay? He's not a trafficker, right? A trafficker is, they're big businesses. They're people that are forcing people to work. Even Nikes, like, no offense, but not a lot of the shoes, there was an NBA player that came and called out Nike, and nobody said Carlos, you said to him, okay, R. Kelly, you know, R. Kelly is not a trafficker, right? In legal terms, like I work in the legal thing, R. Kelly is a buyer, right? Because he's too famous to go out there and be just taking kids and just bring it. Come on now. Right? It doesn't go like that. And I know a lot of people in my movement get mad of me. My survivor colleagues are upset when I say that, because it's the truth. It's the truth, so we have to be educate ourselves and understand it. And also that goes back to why I say the reason we don't want to call it modern day slavery, because of the history of slavery in this country. There's a book that I just read. It's called Black Hands, White Black Hands, White Hounds. It's about forced labor in the United States and how Black America helped to build the United States when it comes to forced labor. And so when we use terms to try to move us away from the truth, right? And I always tell people, if we really want to address the issue of forced labor, we will be all guilty, because even one of the famous celebrity that is right now in prison for trafficking, that celebrity also did forced labor. Like, a lot of his product was being made in Mexico and other places, but that didn't come out in the news. And that was in 2018. Like, nobody said anything about it, right? These were kids making clothes. And so Africans being auctioned off in Libya, nobody said anything. So I'm like, you know what? And then the George Floyd happened, then me going to presentation. I don't see a lot of people like myself going to get help. All these people coming to me asking for help from that are from Africa because they saw my story, they heard me, but they go to organizations, they're not being represented, or they just did not understand that is happening to them and things like that. So I had to do a survey, and I will send you the link of the op-ed that I wrote with my colleague Finest Lipinga, who is from Malawi, on the systemic racism affecting human trafficking. And the survey was just really big, and the finding we're sending out, and it did say yes, the most people vulnerable to trafficking situation were the people that were the BIPOC community.
And when you say BIPOC, that's Black, Indigenous people of color.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that, and which shows that it is layered and complex, and also, as you were saying, it's about people benefiting financially and in so many different ways. People are benefiting off of other, people's labor
Yeah.
and suffering, and that is the sort of complexity of it does not look like what we think it does, because it is this network of many people benefiting from it. And so we're not going to speak up on certain things because they're it benefits them.
It
And
benefit
also,
them.
yeah, and I appreciate you bringing in sort of the cultural perspective and the racial layers of it as well. And before too much time passes, I saw that Tiffany had her hand up earlier for a question. Do you still have that question, Tiffany?
I'm sure I forgot most of it.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Um, but she actually spoke to a lot of it. I actually identified with a lot, and it was something else she just said, that made me think of how some of this in labor regard is kind of normalized in black homes. I say that for example, because though I wasn't trafficked, everything else she described I too endured in a family member's home, whether it be my mother or an aunt or something, as a couch surfing youth here also in the district, where we are kind of kids raising kids, cooking for kids, we given these sorts of responsibilities and stuff, without asking for them or not knowing, like, hey, this is what my childhood is about to entail, when we merely are just actually trying to just be kids navigating life. But she definitely said a lot that I kind of speak to my son about now. For me, as a mom of a black boy and now 13, um, when Dewan, if I'm saying it right, asked the question, it was to the essence of healing, especially what it looks like we're speaking to our youth, our upcoming youth, because I talk to my son every often about what my story looked like too, but also the why I parent the way I do, why I can be overly critical of myself as a parent, but also trying to make sure that I'm keen on embedding the right things in him. And after being abused in multiple facets, whether it's physical, emotional, and things like that, you want to make sure you don't pass it down to your children, and you try to raise them to be mentally healthy and teach them things to look out for and stuff like that.
Um,
Thank you, Tiffany.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add
thank
one.
you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carlos. I was gonna add to what Tiffany said.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to the notion of healing also, because I think a lot of people take those terms healing and people getting over things, and they take it real light. They don't really look at the impact that situations have on people, and not only just people as individuals, but like generations. So I don't know if everybody heard of like Dr. Joy Leary. She wrote a book called Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and then there's other psychologists and people that study like epigenetics, which is how DNA is affected over time and how trauma is still passed on generationally. And when Evelyn was talking about her family members, like, oh, just leave it alone, get over it. Like that's the collective theme in Black America. Like we're always told, get over the past. That happened 400 years ago. That's not relevant to what's going on with you all today. But we are a direct byproduct of what happened to our forefathers. And just like white America is a byproduct of what happened to their what their forefathers were doing. They benefit financially from what their forefathers did. We benefit, also we don't benefit. There's a disparity in terms of economics because of what our poor parents went through. So I think there's a lot just to be talked about and a lot to be discovered. And I think healing is the right thing, Evelyn. And you're
Yeah.
right. It is a process. It is something that takes time. It's not going to be like an overnight process. It'll probably be a lifetime process, realistically, because like I said, you talk about generational trauma. There's Black people that's coming up out of the womb immediately and they got trauma and they don't even know why they got trauma. Like, Black children are, having reactions and impacted by certain things. And they're like, why am I responding this way? Because they don't realize that some of this trauma is embedded and is passed on generationally. So, I think when we study DNA and we study epigenetics, we'll look at a lot of human behavior in general in a different way. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done talking now. For real.
No, I agree with what you say, Carlos, but I also wanted to just time in a little bit on what Tiffany said. And Tiffany, thank you for sharing. I agree with some of the things that we said, but I also want us to have an understanding that because again, it is in our culture, sometimes when you say Africa or Black America, we have so much in common, right? So I always just try to say, right, it is in our culture. Like I'm a single mom right now, and my son is 12. So I'm like, can you help me take the trash out, right? You also you're instilling them the ability to just be more responsible, right? But it's not like I'm whipping my son left and right, like, hey, go and do this and go and do that, right? It is in our culture, even in Africa, for us to help. Like before coming to the United States, I was helping around the house in my uncle. Like I will hold the baby while the mother is cooking or my auntie is cooking, or just entertain the baby while the mother's cooking. And when I finish, because there's a difference, right? Because kids always ask me, there's a difference, right? There's a difference on like, hey, have the kids help out around the house, right? Versus like, let's force Evelyn to take care of two kids, abusing her, beating her, and not saying anything. Just and to let you know, my case did go to court, and there was a restitution order of $100,000, and out of the 100, I've only collected 5,000 so far, right? So we have to know the difference, right? Because a lot of times people say, oh, is it okay to ask I think it was a parent that asked me the question, is it okay to ask my child to do the dish? It's like I'm forcing. Yes, right? Malcolm, listen, if you don't take that trash out, there is no phone for you for like a month, right? It's okay because we're also teaching them the upbringing, right? So there's like helping your child grow to be able to take care of their home when they do get a home or get out into life versus forcing them, abusing them, or someone else is forcing and abusing them, or having your children to go work at such a young age to provide for the family where they are supposed to be going to school. It is our duty as parents to raise our children, not forcing them to work and providing for the household. And we have to know the difference.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think Salakshana, you also had a question earlier too.
Hi, yes. Hi, Evelyn. Hi, Greta.
Hello.
My question was also about healing, which you talked about. But I wanted to have two questions, I guess, because I grew up in Sri Lanka first half of my life, and this is somewhat of a universal problem across developing countries, right? It's not just one race specific. And I've heard about the physical abuse, the mental abuse, abduction of children, adults, you name it, for indentured servitude, in other words. And so my question was, in those 18 years without seeing family, being mentally and physically broken, how did you find hope, and how did you cope with those things in those dark days? That's one. And the other one was, what would you say to someone going through this right now in whatever capacity? Because, being held against your will, in even within family, like Tiffany mentioned, having to do certain things. What would you say to them if they listen to this recording at some time to give them hope?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your question and for the two questions. And I'm glad. So I do have an amazing colleague that is from Sri Lanka, but she's based in Canada. Her name is Shira Pal, and she has started an organization called One Child, and she actually been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And so I'll send you your information. So your question is right. It doesn't, those countries like Sri Lanka, like Asia, and Africa, we share similarities when it comes to culture. And debt to servitude is really in that part of the world a lot, right? I have colleagues I helped a young man that was trafficked. People would think, oh, he went to Cameroon. There was a young man from India that was trafficked from India to Cameroon, right? To work in the gold mine. He went to India thinking he was going to become a barber, right? And that's when we talk about trafficking, we also have to talk about migration, right? People migrate for different reasons, right? And not everybody just want to migrate to the United States or to the Europe, right? They migrate to other neighboring countries, and they also become victims of trafficking or forced labor. So this young man went to Cameroon and was like thinking he was going to be rich, making money shaving hair there, but instead was trafficked into the gold mine. And it took safety measure to get him out to go back to India. He reached out to me on WhatsApp. So you're right. It does, I like I said, I'm speaking as an African woman that this affected me, but it does impact all race and definitely the BIPOC community, like I mentioned. And so to your question, as for healing, I know I don't want to talk and then lose my thought, right? And as far as like hope, that was one of your question. For people to see this, it is like I always say, the road to freedom or healing is it's not it's almost there. And going back, when I saw my family, when I went back to Cameroon, of course I had to throw my own farewell party, right? I went back to, and the reason I even decided to go back to Cameroon is after I graduated from CCBC, I did apply to go to University of Baltimore. Why in University of Baltimore? I took a class and they wanted us to read this book, The Odyssey, and I was like, damn, I wish I was back at CCBC. Like, nah, this is like a lot of like I didn't know, but the professor made a statement like, if you are in this class, the class was arts and ideas. It's like if you're in this class, you should have already read this book. You should know about everything. This should just be easy for you. And that statement really hurt me because I was like, I've never read the Odyssey. I don't know who the heck Zeus is. I did not know who. Now I know who Zeus is, right? But I didn't know who Zeus is. And then I was also dealing emotionally, right? I was missing, even though I graduated from CCBC, yeah, I am. I felt like I was in a room full of like smart people. I was trauma wise. I have not seen my family. My brother came, and so we moved. I'm staying with my blood brother, but we were like strangers, right? Same father, same mother, but we were strangers because I didn't grow up with this brother of mine. We didn't talk to each other, and then my brother was like, I think it's time for you to go to Cameroon, and so he went back home. I also one another thing you should know in my situation, I didn't have American citizenship. So I had what is called the T visa. And so the T visa, I had to go to court in order to get the T visa. They didn't want to give me a Cameroonian passport because they said I wasn't Cameroonian, even though they know my story. So I had to wait 5 more years before I became an American citizen to be able to travel back home. I paid, I got my American citizenship. I worked really hard as a security guard, paid for my flight to Cameroon after 18 years. My mom, it was a surprise. She was at the airport. She was crying, and my family members, my auntie, because I come from a big family on my father's side. My grandfather had 5 wives, and on my mother's side, it's not really as big as my father's side. So my aunties on my father's side were like touching me, holding me. It was like, is that really her? Is she really alive? And they were just talking about how small I was when I left, and it was tears. And my mother kneeled down and cried and asked for forgiveness, and everything was different for me going back, right? Certain things I remember, certain things I don't remember. And there were kids in my primary school that would come up to me, they were getting angry. It's like, oh, Evelyn, you don't remember me? Or they call me E, because Evelyn E, I was like, you don't remember me? I'm like, no. Some I remember, some I couldn't remember. I remember some of the mango tree that I climbed, but things were different, right? But I had dreadlocks. If you guys remember, I had dreadlocks at that time. Greta and Carlos remember, but when I went to Cameroon and my dreadlocks was all really long, I cut it off because it was like I made peace, and it was such a healing. When we talk of healing, that trip healed me. And also being in America, I've just was in this bubble. I no friends, a lot of us in America, we are ignorant, right? And I became part of that because I travel. I stopped in France, and my brother, speaking of, like, my brother like lived in Belgium and saw that I was talking French. I didn't understand French. I was having issue, and he came, and my own blood brother, and we reunited in France before I went to Cameroon. And then it was joy, it was sadness, but it also was healing to me. And then when I came back from that trip, from reunited with my family, things were different. It was the Evelyn that we knew just became twicer because I made peace. Yes, I met my uncle. He explained his side. It's like he took money, but he thought the money was a gift. Just having that conversation, I was like, well, uncle, the money was not a gift. You actually sold me,
Mhm.
you know and then when I came back, cut off my dress, it was just part of just my own healing. I didn't also know that I was pregnant, and so when I came back, I found out that I was pregnant with Malcolm, and a lot of things went on. I didn't want to have a child. I was 27, and I was in University of Maryland. I just thought this child will disturb my life, and I didn't want to bring kids into this world because I felt like the world was wicked, and nobody cares about, especially being in foster care, seeing what all the little kids were going through. I just was traumatized from that part as well. But this little guy wanted to come, and he came, and I named him Malcolm after the great Malcolm X because I love the teaching of Malcolm. And he also kind of helped me with my healing, and also is pushing me to be better, to be, a fighter and not giving up, and just keep fighting for a better world where there will be no child exploitation. And to your, I guess I answered to question both of your question, right? And for me, if someone is watching this, the journey to healing is not easy. It's not. I'm still in the process. I'm still dealing with stuff. I work in an organization that I am the only Black woman there, director. I have to teach some of my colleagues of some certain things to say, certain things not to say. Sometimes it's hard. I do a lot. I travel a lot. I present a lot, and sometimes I don't even stop to say I need a break, right? Greta called me the other last month. I was like, Greta, I'm in Jamaica. I'm taking a break. And my boss was like, yeah, you need a break. Because I just wanted to do it all. And also it just hit me that I've not really healed. But I need to start taking care of myself. I'm still Evelyn, I'm still kindness, but I have to be selfish in just like people in Cameroon, I cannot give you all my money. I didn't birth all of you. Okay. Family year, I can help you as much as I can. I have to start cutting off and just say, my focus is to raise my son for him to be a successful human being. And also, in order to do that, I need to stay alive and take care of myself. And which is why I've decided to go and get help, talk to a therapist that way. And but also there also was not a lot of therapists that I was getting that could understand where I'm coming from. So it was kind
Yeah.
of hard, right? But what I want people that are listening to this, the journey to healing for trafficking survivor in my situation is never ending. Especially as a child, so much was taken away from me. Imagine not going to school from age 9 until 17. Imagine coming out of the situation, having to work really hard to go reunite with your own family. Imagine having to still take care of your entire family because they depend on you. Imagine taking care of your mother that is diagnosed with cancer, and this is a woman you did not grow up with, that you met when you were 27, right? And now they depend on you. So healing is a process. I'll keep saying that. And but we must take it really seriously. And if we are raising children, yeah, especially Black children, we have to let them know it's okay to talk, it's okay to cry. And if something bother you, that's what I do with my son. Let's talk about it. How can we fix it? How do we know? And it's life. There are gonna be obstacles, and I'm facing them. I've met presidents, I've met world leaders, but I still live not in a very safe neighborhood, right? But people will never know that, right? And I'm raising a son in that type of neighborhood, you know. So the road to freedom is not an easy one, and that goes for the road of healing. It's not an easy one. It's a process, and I'm working towards it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Evelyn. That's so much. I think we could be here all night, but I don't want to take up too much of your time and also the time of the group, but just, everything that you are sharing, it is so, we're so it's so informative, but we're so blessed by it. And I just thank you so much, knowing that you are so busy and you have a lot on your plate, that you're willing to share your experience with us. I do have one last question before we wrap up. I just wanted for you to share a little bit about the Harriet Tubman Fellowship,
Yes.
and also to what can the average person do to build awareness and advocate for survivors of human trafficking?
Thank you. So I will start off with the Harriet Tubman Fellowship. So last year, the organization I work with, the Human Trafficking Legal Center, we launched a program called the Harriet Tubman Fellowship. Originally, I worked at a law firm, Baker McKenzie, and we were going to launch a program on to help survivor of trafficking to obtain jobs, or or to just support them, right? Paying for whatever needs they may have that they need help. Because I was thinking of my own situation of just like I was going through life. I did not know I would end up with students loan. I did not know that I needed extra support or income. So with the Harriet Tubman Fellowship, we help survivor of forced labor. And I will put the link here. I do have the pamphlet as well. Let me also just share the link.
Yeah, I can put it in the chat.
Greta, can you share the link? So yes, so the program helps support survivor of forced labor, right? We launched it last year on February of last year. So this month actually makes it 1 year since we launched the program. And the reason it's called Harriet Tubman Fellowship because my boss, who is a white woman that I'm just like, oh, so she knows me. She embraced my authentic self, right? Because first I was gonna call it the freedom fighter, the next generation freedom fighters. But she was like, you love Harriet Tubman, why don't you call it that? So we call it that to help support survivor of forced labor, and they get to pick whatever career um goal they have in mind, right? And then we support that with a 10,000 each year. It's a 2-year program. Not only that, we also provide a $500 monthly stipend, to just support the whatever needs. So we have no regulation of what they do with the 500 stipend. The only rule regulation we have is for the 10,000 that goes directly to the school of their choice. And so out of 84 applicants, we picked 7, and the 7 are in the school of their choice already. And this year have make it 1 year that, we've launched the program. And we also provide like advocacy training, right? So last year I brought them to DC to just learn, because if they are survivor of trafficking, if they also want to share their voice, share their story, let's train them. It goes back to the healing, right? Like, be healed before you get on stage to tell your story, right? And also, telling your story don't make money, right? That's a lot of conception that people have, like survivors. Oh, Evelyn went to Paris, she got money. No, 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 no. We sometimes we don't get paid, and I'm like, how do you guys want us to come and share our experience, but you don't pay us? It's called intellectual property. You guys will pay a celebrity a whole lot of money to come host an event, but you don't pay the people that suffered through it, right? So we're like, no, we're not. And I came up with that. Even being on the White House camps, I was on the White House council under Obama, right? For 2 years to work on report. Well, now they're taking everything away. The new administration is taking everything away, which I'm a little pissed right now about that. But we were working on reports addressing that, educating the administration on trafficking. And it was a lot of work. Sometimes I would take off work just to come be there, and we were not getting paid. And so I called that out. And now the new councils are getting paid, right? So with the Harriet Tubman Fellowship, we support them in their dreams. We help them, and we also do communication training if they want to be leaders, in this sector. They want to still share their stories, but we would train them, to be out there, to be on a panel, to be a keynote speaker. We will help them. We also do lobbying. So last year they met with Ambassador Dyer, who was the former trafficking person ambassador for the State Department, and then Secretary Mayorkas and his team. So I brought them, and also just showing them like, hey, this could be you. You could be Evelyn if you want to, but we will support you to get here. But I also want you to pick whatever career you want to do, and we will invest in that career, because we need investment stuff. So please do reach out. Thank you, Agatha. And then we also just donate, right? I share this program globally, and people wish for it to be global, but right now it's only US based, because people don't know we struggle in America. So I want people, so right now it's only US based, because there's struggle in America that people don't see, and they need that support. And Greta, what was your other question? Because I
Um,
talked too much, I forgot.
no, you could. For the average person, how do they build awareness and advocate for survivors of human trafficking?
Thank you. You can start building awareness by first yourself listening to a survivor, which you guys are doing today, and I applaud you. And I'm also grateful that I'm having a lot of Black people really interested in this topic and wanted to be involved in it as well, right? I'm really, really happy to really see that. You can also be involved in by just knowing what to look for and how to go about it, and talking to your kids, right? Like even right now, like I have my son, the kids get trafficked through Roblox, okay? Gaming, social media. Like I did told you guys, I spoke at Facebook, right? And sometimes you see an advertisement, come to Canada. If you want to make social money, all you need is to pay this. Be careful. So the Human Trafficking Legal Center, we run a database, right? That tells you what is what is legit, you know like I have people that have fall victim in like going to Dubai for better from different part of Africa to Dubai, and they end up being forced into forced labor, domestic servitude. So knowing and also understanding the issue, but really getting education on the issue, on how to address it, and really start talking to your kids about it, right? Because kids are really, really vulnerable to this situation, because they're not getting the love from home. So they go to a stranger that build that trust to get that love.
And some good resources are the Human Trafficking Legal Center. And would you recommend any other
Yes.
sources? Mhm.
Yes, so we also have the National Human Trafficking Hotline. It is under Polaris, which is also a big organization in Washington, D.C. that run the hotline. And also even the U.S. Department of Transportation, we've done training for them. And Homeland, you can go to Homeland Security, the Blue Campaign. We work with the Blue Campaign. I work with the Blue Campaign Human Trafficking. And they were recently at the Super Bowl. Brandy, who is an amazing Brigham, she was at the Super Bowl to talk about, the work that they do because trafficking is all around us, right? It's a big issue. We were supposed to do a public announcement video for the Super Bowl, but we haven't gotten that opportunity. Even feast, what do you call World Cup, the soccer World Cup will be coming to America, and that's something that we in the human trafficking sector we are trying to make sure that they're going to address human trafficking in that. So we, and the State Department. Well, I can't say the State Department because with the new president, last week, I think was it 2 week, I got an email. He's taking a lot of the publications that we are work on. He's removing that, so I cannot refer you to the TIP office State Department website because that man is taking a lot of things that I was part of working and is trying to remove them away from the website.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another thing. So we've worked really hard to make sure like the US State Department engage survivors in trafficking. And recently we were told that a lot of the publications will be removed.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
But if they can, but they can still go to sites to learn information
Yeah, they can still
and
go to
still
the
donate.
yeah. So I'm gonna put a couple of one, yeah, but you can still go to site to learn and things like that. And yeah, so the State Department, Homeland Security, the Blue Campaign is really the big one as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I know we're a little bit over time, but if y'all just give us a few more minutes, there's one more question from Tiffany, and then we'll close out. And I just want to thank Evelyn so much for her time. But Tiffany, you had your hand raised.
What's the random thing? What if youth wanted to get involved? Say like my son who's 13, but I also work with grassroots organizations and do a lot of community advocacy and currently on the education board who I'm actually going to share the link with when I get off this call tonight. How can do you guys offer one for youth to be able to get involved and potentially earn community service hours? And or what does it look like for some of our DC youth that potentially not just only want to get involved, but would like to leverage you guys' expertise with navigating daily life? As you know, our population of youth, a lot of them are homeless.
Yes. Thank you, Tiffany. I didn't mention that. I'm also part of the DC Human Trafficking Task Force, which is run by the Attorney General Office in DC. So we also do try to put a lot of programs regarding the youth. So, Tiffany, if you can reach out to me, I can also send you some resources on that regarding the youth, but also we can talk of other ways. Like I talk to kids. Like I said, I'm in Atlanta right now. I just spoke to like ninth graders and middle schoolers. And one thing I also say, which I was really disappointed, in Europe, they like in all the classes, even like first grade kids, they are like teaching kids about trafficking compared to the United States. Like they don't talk about it in schools a lot. Only a few schools. Like I've had a couple of schools that I've spoken at, but we are trying to work. We did work with the U.S. Department of Education to like, hey, can we have this in elementary school, right? And they said that parents don't want it. Right? Parents don't want it. So to your question, since you're in DC, I'm in DC, Tiffany, please do reach out. As far as community service, I can definitely hook you up as well. I will put my email address here and you can email me. And then and your kid that is 13, we can talk. Like I said, I'm always talking to the kids what to look out for and be careful who you're talking to on Roblox. My son got Roblox, and I also have like an amazing app that I track my kid, and I also get to monitor and see what they're doing. Like I'm here in Atlanta, but I'm like, hey, you're not supposed to be on YouTube. Block, why are you watching? Right? And I can also share some of those resources for you to share with the kids.
So, Evelyn, thank you so much for your time. And so in the chat, I see a lot of people just saying thank you.
Thank you,
Yvonne
guys.
says, thank you for sharing and enlightening us. Appreciate the invitation. Then also, Hannah says, this has been truly incredible. Thank you for sharing your story and light, Evelyn.
You, Hannah.
Um,
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. And thank you, really applaud to Greta for having this thing. I really appreciate it. And Carlos for popping up. It means a lot. It brought back my CCBC day memories. But really, thank you guys for listening and asking all the right questions. And especially, I know the focus question today was really healing, but you also got me thinking that I need to really do more when it comes to my healing on, and I really appreciate really all of you. And if you guys want to have a part two of this discussion, if there's some questions that you had in mind that I was not able to address, please do reach out and we can talk about it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. So after this, everybody who signed up for this, I'll send a follow-up email with Evelyn's contact information, some of the resources she said she can go to, it, especially the Harriet Tubman Fellowship, so that you can donate to that. And thank you, thank you. The leadership discussion series will continue in March. And again, it's amazing people that I've met along the way. So there'll be one in March, and there'll also be one in May as well. And so you'll receive information about that since you signed up for this event. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Evelyn. I can't thank you enough. I know it is not, there's always a balance of wanting to share the information, but also not feel like it's too much on you. But yeah, definitely do take care of yourself. You are amazing. There's only one you, right? Amazing you. So prioritize your health, prioritize your emotions, prioritize everything that is good for you. Please do that for yourself. You deserve it a million times over. So thank
Thank
you
you
so much.
guys so
I'm
much.
so honored that you came and spoke to us tonight. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You guys have a blessed one. Thank you, guys.
Bye. Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Bye.
Greta, thanks for putting this together.
You're very much welcome. Thank you for coming.
Super helpful. I randomly found this on Eventbrite while trying to sign up for a poetry event. I'm glad I came.
I'm glad you came too. I'm glad you saw it. I put it out there, so I'm glad people see it. Okay, have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.